We have Thom from Thom and Stuff, which is very exciting. And I just want to kind of chat through why we are here, because it's so exciting. We're here because it's the first podcast that I've ever done in my entire life. And look at this wall. We got this green wall especially for this super duper TV show, okay? But we have Thom here, and Thom here is for a very beautiful reason. But we met, didn't we, at Baltic?
Did, yeah.
And I worked there, and I thought, who's this cool guy who's sitting there, who's looking very arty, looks like he does something in life, and guess what? You do.
Yeah.
Chief animator here, and so really we, as Freekstar, what we're trying to do is we're going to try and make a load of content to launch our first set of 3 singles, which is very exciting. And you know, in the modern day age, you need lots and lots of visuals because it's the internet now, isn't it, Thom?
Yeah.
You know, in the olden days, you didn't need all this hassle. You didn't have to have all these wacky things on
Just show
online.
up to a pub.
Yeah, exactly. You just show up to a pub, strumming your guitar, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, and it's just a real privilege to have you here. And you said we had a chat, didn't we, a few weeks ago? And you said you'd go away and you'd have a think about, well, Bulletproof, or have you thought about each of the songs?
I've went through each one of the songs. So I had a few ideas with them. So
Cool.
I've got, so it's the stuff I have more to show for is the thing I've worked for Swivel It, but I can go through them in order if you like.
Yeah. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, so I was
Yay!
you can some of the notes of them. Yeah, so I thought working on sort of the theme of the album cover with the tank and the plants growing.
Yeah, because Bulletproof is the sort of the theme.
Yeah.
For this one of these songs, basically.
Yeah, so
whatever that means, by the way. You know, what does that mean? You know, I'm invincible, or you know, I mean, the song is a bit about, you know, I was bullied at school, but I'm back with a vengeance. I'm a bit of a superwoman.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so I worked with that a bit, and so what I was looking into was sort of, how do I get that? How do I get the themes with it? And there's a thing you can do through Blender. So one of my 3D animation software.
Is it called Blender?
It's called Blender, yeah.
There's a plug for Blender for all you animation people out there.
And it's free.
Even better.
So what I was thinking for Bulletproof is, so I'm having a bit of a debate with what to do with the background for it, so I'll pitch that to you. But the main thing I was thinking is I can have a tank, because I know you're showing us, I'm trying to remember the video you showing us last time, but where it was the footage but all the 3D animations of going around.
Yes.
So working with that, have a tank, but as the song goes on, the plants start to grow over it, and I can have it either in the real world, and then comp it in, and make it look like it's actually there and happening, or I was also looking into stuff like these 80s vaporwave sort of liminal spaces.
Because I like a bit of the old 80s
vaporwave
sort of thing. It's, you know,
that's one of the things I was looking into.
Cool vibes.
It's big aesthetic I love with things. Yeah, so
it's kind of all in now, isn't it, vaporwave?
Yeah, and that was like
a genre.
It was one of the things that I've done for Baltic as well. That's in there. That was all inspired through that. So it sort of kicked off this whole wanting to do more. Yeah. So having a tank, having plants grow around it, and it's finding on what the background space will be for it. But because of how like the song's really punchy, you know, it's so I thought it's how that would animate would be a bit gentler, and just I was trying to work out how to sort of get that to have sort of keeping with sort of like the actual beat of the music, so it doesn't just look like something's been a video's and the music's separate, so it works together.
I know what you mean, because it's not a casual song either, is it? So the movement, I'm not saying the movement has to be quick, but it has to sort of go in the rhythm of the
so theme. One of the other things is like, so we're saying like the connecting theme with all of them, I would say, we could have it as like hands, working with that. So what I was looking into is having maybe hands, but maybe having it at the front of the screen, so it's almost like you're looking at your hands there.
Right.
Yeah,
Like that.
like that.
Hands.
And having it so it's sort of cutting to that, to like the punchier parts where it's the hands going like in finger guns,
Right.
but almost like an arcadey 3D like asteroid game in that.
Yeah.
Something like that. So cutting to that.
Right. That sounds cool.
So
I like the gaming kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
You know,
so
and interestingly, because we put the music on SoundCloud, right? And the idea for these animations is that we eventually launch each one on Spotify, and then when Spotify's the big one, you know, and all that sort of thing. But we found on SoundCloud quite a lot of our audience are gamers and sort of, you know, well, there's a mix. There's some who are into rap music. There's the odd indie kid, but there is quite a few people who do like game sort of vibes, you know, so that would kind of fit the bill. Yeah,
so I had like me all around looking into theme.
So do you think these hands would go across the 3 songs? Is that what you or is that?
Yeah, so they would be doing different things. They're going to be more prominent in sort of like the other ones. So I can go into sort of like bits which I was testing out things with for Swivel It. So
well, look, here's what I prepared earlier. That's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, so I was just playing around a bit with so I know I talked about like rotoscope in a hand, so having it drawn over so it looks like 2D animated. Yeah. So I don't know how you feel like, so I was thinking of doing that, but we were talking about like having the 2 hands, how we differentiate between the 2. So I think maybe one rotoscoped and one a bit more like, I don't know if like hold it to that, a bit more sort of like actually cut and then made a bit more stop motion. Yeah. So I don't know, see how it works.
Though, isn't it? Isn't that cool? Look at that hands! Look at that! How cool is this video going to be? You know, because if people are wondering what's happening with the hands idea, it was just, you know, when you're struggling to come up with a video idea. And before I met Tom initially, I thought, what we're going to do. And, you know, the Addams Family, there's the thing hand. Yeah. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be good to have a hand running around in a video, maybe choking something? No, not quite, you know what I mean? Sort of as a motif, something that could maybe live in not just one video, but more than one video. Because I guess when you make content for online, there's thousands and millions of people making all sorts of content. How do you identify your content against other people's? How does it not just look generic? How do you get your own kind of identity with, you know, in terms of your band within that? So we're just trying to come up with a motif.
Yeah, I think it works quite well with it, because I think it was one of the things I was thinking, like how for like Swivel It, it's like,
because we thought with Swivel It, you know.
Yeah.
The rock and roll.
And
hand gestures.
I always say there's nothing really else other than hands to put into that to really like have that, but that translates really well into the other songs. So it's like, it's good having as the connecting factor. So this was, so it's one of the things sort of like the had it on the list is sort of like 80s sort of like vaporwave stuff and arcade themes with it. So this one, which is where I started thinking a bit more about the arcade theme. So I'll bring it back up just in case.
Is that your hand?
It's yeah.
Look, it's the famous hand. It's his hand, for those who didn't realise. That's going to be in the video. So,
well, I was. It could be like put a glove over it or something, or like, you know, make it a bit different, or like, you know,
bulletproof. I don't know. Could we draw on the hand or?
Yeah. But what I was thinking is because put up there. I got health bars at the top, so I just want to have a play around, see how that worked. It's sort of the arcade theme. So we're talking about like the 2 hands, maybe like against each other or something like that.
Oh yes, because we had this idea, didn't we, that maybe they'll fight with each other and all this sort of stuff.
So having like health bars to them, and so they'll play like rock, paper, scissors, thumb wars, things like that. Right. And it's almost like a Mortal Kombat, like round 1, round 2 sort of thing going through. And then what would fit really nicely is sort of the logo for the band is just, so it, obviously design it a bit better for it, but it could fit perfectly in the middle. And I was thinking, like depending on timescale with it, I could even have it as like a 3D graphic that spins the band logo with it.
So then you always know it's not just generic, anybody.
Yeah.
Right, this is a Freekstar production. Instantly with a bit in the background.
Yeah, and I thought like, so a bit more to tell the different characters as maybe having them in different mediums. also saves us a bit of time having to draw with two hands.
Yeah,
and doing instead just sort of doing an effect on the other one.
You're right, because with animation, it's very it can be time consuming. So you've got to try and come up with a few kind of tricks, haven't you? Really.
Well, yeah, that was it. Because I think, like, especially for like doing the tank in Bulletproof, with the flowers growing, that might take a bit more time. So it's, I think, is where can I save time, or what can I cut to be a bit more ambitious?
Yeah. And would the tank be kind of 3D generated or be drawn? You know, the tank.
I'd do it in 3D. So since it'll be done in Blender with the effect, yeah, I'd like do a 3D CG model of it that I could then put the effect on, and then depending on, so yeah, if like, you know, you like the idea of like the sort of vaporwave liminal space thing. So I've got some like references I found for some ideas that I can shoot as well, that off like through YouTube. So if I can end up like that. Or other part I was thinking was either like go to like have it in a park because it's the flowers, but then or I could find some sort of like have it in like an industrial estate. So it's
industrial, because I get the feeling that the band vibe is far more industrial.
Yeah, and then
sort of thing. Not quite Tank Girl, but you know, there wouldn't be in Kew Gardens in London. Do you know what I mean?
and then the plants grow and stand out more instead of like, oh, it's just, oh, so it's a tank in a park. Plants grow over. So I was like, oh, in an industrial state, it stands out. It becomes a bit more punchy then.
Exactly. And for those who are wondering why we're linking tanks with flowers, is because, you know, basically, you know, we don't want war. We want peace, and we're, you know, without sounding hippie chick about it, we're much more about this kind of idea of, you know, this kind of love, you know, showering love into the world, not showering bullets into the world, you know. And so when we were thinking about the army and war imagery, we were just a little bit sensitive about that, weren't we? We didn't want the public to think we were a shooting, tooting, gun-toting band. And, you know, the message was far more, you know, about harmony and people being harmonious with each other. But also the song's quite fun and funky and you know, it's got a kind of rock edge to it as well, hasn't it?
Yeah. So I think what I was thinking with it was, so I was thinking, do I have the tank firing? But I thought, no, don't really. Also,
is it probably harder technically?
Practically, yeah. So like practically, it's a bit more of a time saver, but also I think thematically it makes more sense to not have the tank firing and just have the plants take over it. But to fit in with a bit more of the punchiness, is that's having like the arcade hands firing.
I've got it. Yeah.
And it's a bit more detached from more real world stuff, and it's a bit more like sci-fi, and it's from that, and it's more imaginary to it.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I think that gaming culture where people are having a bit of fun in that thing is not mimicking kind of the, you know, wartime violence. It's not, you know, you can see it's kind of more fun, it's in the kind of gaming realm, you know, from that point of view. Nobody died in this video, hooray. But I do like the vibes of that. And so just say with the tank from Bulletproof, and it just kind of navigates through this world that you create, this kind of vaporwave sort of world. Is that what you're imagining?
So I'm thinking like the tank would be static with it. I think that would be it, and it would be more. So say if I did do like it in an environment that I built instead of like a real world one, I'd probably have the environment moving and more reacting to the tank being there rather than the tank reacting to the world with their sort of thing.
That sounds more chill.
Also, again, makes it a bit easier and quicker to do then.
Because we're not on $1 million budget here. You know, if I could hire Tom for the next 3 years to do some video in his room, that would be brilliant. But we have to, I suppose, like all kind of indie and lo-fi projects, isn't it? You've got to find tricks and to sort of, you know, to save time. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things where I was thinking like making bits mixed media with it is because it looks really impressive, but the reality of it is actually it makes it a bit easier and can sometimes save time with things. So that was so I think like originally we talked about the possibility of doing like 3D rigged hands and doing all that, and I was like, that's going to take so long.
And then exactly, and to what effect, you know. It might be that you have these sophisticated hands kind of going, and then hope that was I hope that was the right idea, because you just spent 10,000 hours on it.
Yeah, when really I can just film my hand doing something, then I could either draw over the frames or I could just bang it in After Effects.
That's much better.
Yeah,
it's you know, I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah,
you know?
And then with the 3D stuff and that mixing around, it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's so many different things going on. They must have had, but it's just like, oh no, it's to save time.
It's to save time.
I think like Trouble in Paradise, I don't have like a lot really to that, because
well, it's third on the list as well.
Yeah, it was third on the list, and it was pretty much not much on it, just because I think we're discussed there. It's got like that lo-fi feel to it. So I like the idea of just, I don't know, like building like maybe something like a PS2 graphic car, or maybe like something like a sort of like a like Star Warsy style, you know, like the ships they use to go around, like not the actual spaceships, but the ones used around the deserts and that. So, but it's just on a road going like sort of them like typical like lo-fi ones that you get in like.
Because Trouble in Paradise is a kind of driving song, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trouble in Paradise, quite a chill, rappy, kind of slower vibe.
Yeah.
So that brings its challenges, of course, you know, in that sense.
And instead just having the environment change as it's driving through. So I was thinking just something to like, so it's not just one long loop on, just so it's a bit more entertaining. So I was thinking like, having like the first ones, because it's on the album cover art for it, it's the island on fire.
Yeah.
So having references to sort of like palm trees going through like that, like sort of that's like the Miami feel.
It's got that Miami thing, hasn't it? Yeah.
So like the palm trees going, but then switch around to have a bit more like fiery sort of like maybe like volcanoes in the distance. I think it's a one that can be done like, I think presentation quite simple, but the things that happen could be quite interesting. So the stuff you can do, like this is a thing where I was sort of leaving it to last, because it could be quite ambitious what happens depending on time.
Well,
because there's ways to have the environment react to sound. So one of them could be sort of hills, but they're actually sound waves going through. And it's sort of this.
Does the program do that itself? Does it?
You can set that up. It's all in Blender.
Everybody rushing out to grab Blender and be making their own animations.
Could be paid as a sponsor.
Exactly. That's what it's. Check them out. That's a good point, actually. See what else we can get out of the commercial world.
See if we can actually get paid by Blender.
That's a sponsorship here. Yeah, good idea. You know, the future starts here, to be honest, Tom. The future starts here. This mini Freekstar television.
It's I love open source software, especially like doing freelance stuff. It's just don't have to pay so much. I think other 3D software stuff costs about, like, you're looking at maybe like $1,000 for the
Really?
That's the cheaper ones. Sometimes it goes by the month.
Well, maybe some sponsorship from Blender might get enough money together so you can have that fancy program you've always wanted.
Well, it wouldn't be Blender, that's the probably because they're open source.
I didn't realise they were open source. I thought they were a kind of subscription model where most of it's free.
No, all of Blender's free.
Right.
Plugins, that's the difference. On the ones that you usually pay for, sometimes the plugins are cheaper. Blender's plugins cost a bit more, but because of how it works, most of the time you don't need the plugins.
Oh, right. So,
and that's not by them, they're by like third-party developers.
Right, I see. So they sound a really cool company, actually.
And
for to help artists.
They take donations, and so it's just when they have so many donations done, as far as I'm aware with it, I think it's like, so it's the donations they take from, like, just, if you start using it a bit more, they're like, oh, if you fancy donating at any time, And once they've got enough, then they'll do an update. So unlike the subscription ones where it's like, oh, you're paying all this money, so usually that's how they get you, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So the subscription, so then they have to update it every like year or so just to make it the subscription worth it. While that, it's like, oh no, we do as much as we can with it. We make it fully workable. Then we get enough donations in, and if there's anything worth doing, we'll save up to do a big update to it.
You know what I really like about this is because we're a small independent band, indie band. We're just kind of starting out again, sort of thing. And I really like the idea of all the creative side, not just done by DreamWorks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I quite like that. It feels very homegrown.
Yeah.
And very kind of grassroots in its approach. And I think often it's quite hard to get that online. Everyone's wanting to try and, get the $1 million fancy stuff. And I think we can do that on the cheap. And I quite like that atmosphere to it. It's not as kind of, hard-nosed capitalism, it's
it's funny how that, especially like freelancing with stuff is, it's always like, oh, unless you've got the capital to really back it to get all the fancy stuff, it's like, all right, either somehow procuring it without having to pay for it, or you can find open source stuff, which is, especially if you're just like one person doing the stuff,
and that seems like a really creative thing in itself, isn't it? And possibly come up with quite innovative ideas. Because I know when we wrote these songs, we had really crap equipment.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We had to drill holes through walls to get a sampler in one room to work with one in another, and all this sort of stuff. Tim, the guitarist and producer, would say a lot more about it. But it wasn't like we had access to everything, and I think sometimes limits can be a strength.
Yeah.
Because you find new ways of doing things, and I'd like to think that resonates in the songs, of course. But that.
Yeah, and like I was saying, like doing things like a bit more mixed media with it is instead of like, on a time scale with it, trying to get things done quickly. Not a big team, it'll just be me doing it. So finding a way around that, it's doing like multidiscipline stuff that, and mixing it together and making it all look nice. Because the most effective way.
I mean, I'm not a big expert on how animation movies are made in the mainstream, but I know we knew this guy once, and he was working on Godzilla, right? He's a local guy. He's working on Godzilla, and we said, "What are you doing?" And he went, "I'm the one that does the reflection on Godzilla's eye." Yeah, just the eye. I mean, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
One person. You just think how many people work on that film. That's insane.
Yeah, it's like I think the longest thing I when I had like a bigger team, when I'd done like my short film at uni, I think it was only like 5 of us with it. And I was like, oh. So after I went back after freelancing for a bit, and it's like, oh yeah, I got 5 people working on this. All of them like, oh yeah, no, you do all the rigging, you do all the 3D modeling and that. And then it was still like, oh, we'll actually have to still split it around because it takes so many to do. Like, even just something like fairly short. When you, I remember watching this like really high end like short film. I mean, it was short, it was like 5 minutes, and I think the credits were nearly longer. It takes because it just takes so much. It's like so many people to do so many like little parts, depending on like how big you want it and how much you want.
Totally mental. But this is sounding good. Have you got any more images just to show me?
Not that I've sort of wrapped off myself, but
of course.
Ones that sort of like I'm not on the Wi-Fi. Hang on, I'll riff for a bit.
Yes.
I'll connect it to the
good idea.
But yeah, no. So I was looking at. So I had a bit of a play around. I did like do a few things, building up some effects and that.
I'm very grateful, Tom. You do know that. It's really because time is the most precious thing in our lives, right?
Yeah. So I went through a few things, play around how things look, see what I could play around with some of the footage already. Like, so, like, usually like capture stuff on my phone, and then so I can reuse it to build other things. And that's what I see what I do with that. And I was like, didn't work thematically with a lot of stuff. Like, well, the background in the one that I just shown you before that was some of the stuff I just have on my phone that I thought I need something just behind it before I build something proper. Because also even the hand, that's not the final. That's just a test one for it. Yeah. So it's
Hey, I feel for your brother, because you know, on a side of this, I'm trying to create content really just from my mobile phone for TikTok and Instagram and all the rest of it. So I don't know whether you've seen some of my struggles online already, but you know, we just kind of. So we were filming the other week, this like a carpool, us two in the car, and we're just trying to put that together now in Final Cut Pro. But we do realise that we kind of really have very little resource. You know, you drive in your car and you think, what other shots can I do? Maybe I'll get out of the car, and we had these water pistols, and we drove the car over a water pistol and broke that. That was a shock to us, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then I had you know, I was holding the camera right up high and the wind was blowing in my hair and all. I thought, oh, but I got killed here trying to do these, you know, on the cheap videos. Yeah. Out in the moors. So, more on that later. But,
so when I was on like the liminal space, sort of like vaporwave stuff, it was, I can hold it up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like,
good bit of vaporwave there.
Yeah, so...
And are these things available? You can just kind of use these?
So I wouldn't use... Like, I'd build my own stuff with it and that. Although, funny enough, the sun thing I've done... Oh, that's one of the other ones I was going to show as well. But, so... things as well, especially being like liminal space, and you don't have to like pack it with stuff. But that would where I'd have like the tank in sort of like a setting sort of similar to that, like theming a bit more, but having it with like the sun behind, because that's the classic sort of thing.
You know, I mean, you wouldn't just have rain and hail, would you?
So having it sort of sitting in that, but you could have, since it's in that more, it's that weird sort of like almost like a gallery setting thing where you could have it so the effect going on, and as the stuff's growing, the plant's growing over it, you could have it sort of like on like a lazy Susan thing spinning. I was thinking of sort of having like the camera move around it and sort of have different shots like close up.
That's nice.
So it's not just static growing over.
Because it's all about the movement, isn't it, at the end of the day? It's to keep it, if people are watching videos, I mean, yes, they care about what they're watching, but I think it's about kind of keeping that vibe moving, isn't it? Yeah. You know.
I'll go.
But I do like that,
To where? Oh, I've got so.
No.
This with it. So this was. If I can find the.
I think the only. We had one tiny criticism from some of the fans on SoundCloud about our imagery, you know all the imagery we've got, because we put 31 songs on SoundCloud, right? And there was no way we were going to get all those up with full-on artworks that were hand-drawn by a million artists with all the great vision for each song. So we went on DALL-E, which is the AI program, and generated them all. And then we got one person on who does bits of graphics or something going, well, you could have done your own artwork. And hey, I totally accept that, by the way. But the AI these days, I don't think there's anything wrong with using it as long as you put your own identity into it. You know, you put the right sort of searches in, which will bring up the wacky sort of imagery that really speaks to the song, rather than simply just typing in the word tank and hoping stuff comes up. Do you know what I mean?
But I think also at the end of the day, you did do your own artwork into your song.
I know.
It's
so this is me not justifying AI, but it's a world we live in, isn't it, as well? And
it's a weird, especially like an animation, because it's a big thing with like, people building visuals and stuff like with AI, and like, is that like, people think it's going to replace? I was like, no. It's like
you still need the creator.
But it's also a lot of it, like it's still definitely not up there enough to like compete with other people doing stuff. But it's a weird thing of like people just making it and trying to sell stuff. But I like it as like a resource in itself. So you've done the song. use it for the album. I've used it in the past for where I've done work where I needed assets, and that for like it's like just a 2D image of a table that's going to be in the background. It's not even going to be the centerpiece, and then I need like other like just little things to fit in the background and that. And I was like, oh well, I can either like go around find the perfect, like go to IKEA or something, you know, or either buy it or just get a good photo in IKEA of it, cut it out, change the colors of it and stuff like that, or I can like just type it in and that. Like I mean, the stock sites and that, but it's against the whole thing like. Well, I use Blender because it's open source and I have to pay for it. I did used to pay for a subscription for stock stuff, and it's the amount of times I used it compared to the cost of it was just
totally
draining. So I thought, just do something out where I need like a stool, but I can't use like you don't want to go on Google Images because you don't want to get copyrighted for it.
Yeah,
it's like it's just one thing, so it's really good for like building up assets. When I've like done bigger things in the past, keeps copyright away from it.
Well, we've got to be careful with the old copyright, haven't we? You know.
Yeah. I think because this is like a short, so it's just the first few of it. But when I was on about things like doing like game graphics stuff, so the idea of maybe having the hands but going through a space that builds sort of like Tronny, sort of like arcade like so I think it'll play for a bit.
Let's have it.
Yeah,
I mean that's cool vibes, isn't it?
There's like
look at the 3D effect of that.
So there's like,
can you imagine the hands kind of moving through that sort of
so like it could like a bit different from that, but for example, like I was saying, like almost like it's a POV of like looking at the hands, the hands doing like finger guns, and it's going through sort of like a tunnel like that.
Yes.
And they could be shooting like little like arcadey lasers, like things like asteroids or like something like a space invadery sort of thing. And so
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So it's sort of like cutting. So that'll be like so that I'll have like the tank, the stuff growing, and then sort of like transitioning between the two parts of it. So that could be sort of linked in with sort of like how if with bits of the background could be put in, sort of still like link the two together.
No, I'm really liking the vibe. So I'll tell you what, we'll finish this video for now because Tom has to actually get on with some of this work. He can't just sit here talking to me all the time and all that sort of stuff. So listen, I've really enjoyed sharing this creative session with everyone. I hope that's whet your appetites for things to come. Of course, keep checking out on Soundcloud for Freekstar, Bulletproof. A lot of the other songs are on there too. I'm just kind of promoting Bulletproof right now. Swivel It will be the one after, and then Trouble in Paradise will be seen over in Spotify. But for now, we shall say goodbye.